Hi everyone, and welcome to our speaker series. My name is Oksana. I'm a researcher at the Technical University of Munich's Institute for Ethics in AI. And this is our 35th speaker series here, where we try to have interesting people come and talk about their research. And we've done that since 2019. The topic of today's speaker series is Unveiling the Ethical Dimension of AI Research, Exploring the Intricate Relationship between AI and Human Behavior. I came up with this very long title, apologies. And so the setup of today is that we'll have one keynote speaker, Jona Welker, that's already in the room. And then we will have a panel discussion with Ida Skubis, Tom Lindemann, and Yeshuan Wang, that are all three coming in person in this room. And then we will have a lot of discussion. So hopefully, if you have any questions, if there is anything that comes to mind, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll make sure to read it. Also, please let us know if there is any technical issues. There shouldn't be any, but just in case. We're going to get to the event etiquette as well. So please turn off your microphone and camera during the session. If you have any questions during the discussion, please use the raise your hand button and we will unmute you. You can also submit questions via the chat and we will relay them to the speaker. And please let us know in the chat if you have technical difficulties. Okay, I think that's very straightforward. So without further ado, I've said everything I was supposed to. And now we can have Jona take the floor. Jona, can you please try to share your screen?
Yes.
I'll stop sharing mine.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Wonderful. Let me know when can I start my presentation.
You can start right now, Jona. Go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, my friends. My name is Jona Welker, and for many years, I've been working in technology transfer, specifically been focused on medical, educational technologies, robotics, hardware. Last years also serving the European Commission, overseeing the technology transfer research investments, but also the policy. And my session will be focused on ethical dimensions for the most vulnerable groups, such as individuals with disabilities, cognitive, sensory, and physical impairments, is a big part both of our work to create technologies, assistive devices, rehabilitation techniques and systems, but also ethical guardrails, which we're actually trying to do all the time, both cooperating on European AI Act, Digital Services Act, but also more specific guidelines driven by UNESCO, World Health Organization, because we need more stakeholders in this field. So let's start. Currently, there are over 1.6 billion people with disabilities around the world. It includes not only physical, but also cognitive, mental impairments. And my personal focus of my work is cognitive disabilities. And some people can imagine that actually 1 in 6 people living with one or more neurological condition, 1 in 7 with the cognitive impairments, and 1 in 4 adults suffer from diagnosable mental disorder. But what is more importantly is the intersectionality of all of these conditions, including comorbidity, is underlying conditions, different areas of how it affects your sensibility, physical, tactile, visual, and color experiences. Specifically, if we talk about such conditions as autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, attention deficit syndrome, and so on. AI actually playing the significant role in this field and help to eliminate some of the social barriers that people face here, including augmenting and fully smart wheelchairs, walking sticks, geolocation and city tools, We specifically find a lot of use of AI for cognitive disabilities, building social robotics and assistant, smart glasses to support emotion or expression recognition, different type of adaptive learning. But at the same time, it's very important to understand that every disability is unique. And if we talk about physical disabilities, a person may lack limbs, have different body shape or posture. The blind person may not properly understand visual cues or signals given by AI system, or individuals with the hearing impairments may not hear and comply with the audible commands or warnings typical for a city or a public systems. And in a similar manner, for individuals with the cognitive disabilities, they may communicate differently, lack emotional recognition, have different speech or psychomotor pattern. And that's something which I face every day. Then, for instance, I use the social networks, and the social networks identify my pattern is not alive or something which is automated. And my account was actually very close to suspension due to these differences. So how can we improve our research techniques accordingly, taking all this complexity of human differences as an ethical foundation for our research? So first of all, I will discuss four main levels. First is it data and access, because groups or particular parameters historically excluded from statistics which affected modern data sets, models, because they tend to normalize assumption to achieve efficiency for a general population, but it may bring errors for particular specific conditions. System design, because in order to build this solution, we need to think in an inclusive way. We should avoid one size fits all. It requires accessible design, consideration for different stakeholders, for a parent, for a child, for a caregiver, and so on, and institutional design in oversight, including specific curriculums and guidelines. And also, in a complex way, every time when we work on this research, we should understand that all of these conditions are intersectional, including spectrums, comorbidities, gender, and age groups, is modular, including interconnected devices in interfaces, is a multi-stakeholder, including families, caregivers, is a multi-sensory, specifically if we talk about cognitive disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, because it involves some visual, hearing, cognitive parameters. It requires adoption, literacy, and evolving skills framework, and also constant feedback loop between someone who conduct the research, exploration, or building the technology, and basically the group for whom we built these technologies, and we should avoid the misuse in silos. And now I would love to share the different examples how how is unique for people with disabilities and how it find its meaning in the research. First is the data. We talk about data. And one of the classic examples is the comorbidities and gender. When we talk about robotics for autism, we explore that many people on the autism spectrum have not only these neurological conditions, but also potential allergies, digestive system disorders. Also, we explored that there are differences between girls and boys. Girls are frequently misdiagnosed due to the different manifesting criteria and were historically limited in research statistics. Why? Because majority of medical technologies were mostly tested on men. We're coming further, and we're talking about gender and ability. It's known that many of the urban system, public system, smart cities was created based on the data sets, which is a gender blind. And in the same way, they actually are not accurate for invisible disabilities. So we have growing and emerging trend to create accessibility for physical disabilities, but we still ignore cognitive and sensory impairments. We are coming further, ethnic groups in our data collection and labeling. In the US, it was reported that Caucasian parents of children with autism were 2 0.61 times more likely to report any social concerns to their child doctor than African American parents, affecting existing statistics. What does it mean? It means that when we research some medical technology, we can explore that some ethnicities, geographical, social, economic groups were just historically excluded from the research. So we need to create understanding how to include them, how to present all the different population with all of the diversity of manifesting criteria and other patterns. Coming next, age groups. It's a very complex thing because my work relates to autism, dyslexia. In some countries, there is a minimum age that allows to spend research with the children. For instance, for ADHD solutions based on AI, it's typically 8 years old. For social robotics, 12. And by the way, UNESCO just introduced the minimum age for generative AI use, 13 years old, and they discussing actually to increase it further to up to 16 or even 18, depending on the case. So actually, it can affect how you're able to obtain data during your research due to this age restriction. But coming even further is the problem of insufficient evidence. It's something which we have specifically in the medical field. It's known that some medical solutions addressing, for instance, breathing issues in neurological spectrum were developed after very short-term observation. Just a few weeks after achieving some success, the research was stopped. After a longer period of test, it was found that the system is not so efficient and bring negative side effects. However, it was already sent to production. Why it's critical today, then many of the technologies are driven by venture capital, which push to build technologies faster with return on investments. We actually risk to create the problem of this insufficient research, insufficient evidence, then they make some statement or conclusion without sufficient period of observation and research. Coming further is in models. So as I've mentioned, majority of AI models in medicine are focused on general population. And unfortunately, even the whole mechanics of these models are not capable to work with some conditions. Let's talk about craniofacial syndromes. Then, for instance, part of your face is different or they're distorted due to the trauma or from the birth. Some facial recognition systems use ear shape or the presence of the ear canal to determine whether or not an image included in a human face. However, some patients actually can lack this part of the body, or this part of the body can be recognized properly, or the person can use assistive device, which also can lead to the error. And these models are not capable to deal with such syndrome. So we should be focused on adding it to our research as well. Coming next is the parameters and standards. We have so many workplace technologies using AI nowadays in order to increase efficiency of the workflow, also potentially actually bring more equality, avoid human bias. But the problem is that since many of these programs are trained on through using public data sets, including the images, the standards, we have the problem of what we call normality. And there is a significant research about how the system focus on assessment of a professional characteristic, such as the employability of a profession or professionalism, actually work worse for people with disabilities, which subjectively do not look like normal, or they're not able to react in a particular time frame, or they have some differences which come in beyond this normality, and the model trained on general population just not capable to be efficient for these categories. And the same way we find it for medical conditions. It's something typical for me. We have situation, then we create correlation between age and particular disorder, such as a Parkinson, Alzheimer. We believe these conditions are only presented for elder people. In fact, there are cases then conditions typical for elder people can be presented for even for younger population. And now we have this tendency that actually younger populations start to experience some conditions typical for elders. And many of the existing AI models actually train of this correlation. And these models predominantly exclude some severe cognitive and mental impairments among young population. Then we use this AI system to create prediction for a healthcare, or we contribute these disorders only to older groups and excluding these people, something once again, which I face many times in my personal conditions. And the same way, we had the same problem for semantics. There was an experiment with the natural language processing models using public data sets and different logical and semantic formulas. When we added non-disability term, the effect of a semantic formula was resulted in good. So if we talk about healthy person or normal person, it was typically had a good connotation or good context. But disability word typically was associated with a negative connotation, less healthier or less professional. And today, then NLP and natural language processing used by educational technologists and system, work technologists, and so on, we find the situation then automatic platforms actually screening the CV or your portfolio and finding the word disability or something related to particular conditions. It's actually used as a kind of a no or stop word for your potential opportunity to get the job or get the educational opportunity or grant or fellowship and so on. So it's also a part of the semantics. Now we are coming to the systems, and it's closer to me because it's about building and adopting these solutions. If we talk about autism spectrum disorder and smart dashboards, now they're used not by one person. It can be used by the child, by the parent, by educator, by someone who from the school. So we need to build the interface with the different structures, complexities, and data input scenarios. So it's not about the one person. And if we provide the research, how to build the interface and the final solutions and the final AI system, we actually should embrace all of these scenarios. And the same way, we should embrace that this ecosystem is a multiple solutions and a modular ecosystem, because they can involve, for instance, the dashboard and interfaces for data input of my well-being, tracking my health. Also, I have a wearable which helped me to track my heartbeat, blood pressure, or some other information about me. Also, it connected to the smart glasses, social assistant, and robotics. So we have actually the ecosystem of the technologies, and not only for autism. In many areas of a health tech technology, we see this modular approach to the hospital building, the same in education, and so on. And it's becoming both the part of the research and our ethical framework to understand the complexity of this ecosystem. And also, we should understand that all of these systems rely on multisensory parameters. So no matter we are building the smart tablets for people with the visual impairments or people with neurological conditions, we should take into account all the complexity of potential underlying conditions or disorder or impairments, including tactile impairments, differences in the accuracy of a color memory or color research. You can find that some individuals are overly sensitive to the sound, sight, taste, smell, or touch, or barely to anything, or in contrarily, barely notice them at all. There are also other differences related to memory, focus, attention span, communication, reading, and cognitive patterns. And I am finalizing my presentation. Unique thing about disabilities, the research and ethics, is the oversight. And if we're talking about, let's say, machine learning used to train the system for supporting visual impairments, the system can help people with the visual impairments to see the world, see the cities, but the same system can be biased if data sets can selected or labeled by people who underlooked particular patterns, cases, or context. Or if we talk about unsupervised learning, the method which can be presented in genetics when machine learning is used for DNA data clustering, there is a bias due to the lack of input, representation. Raw data can reinforce social disparities and dismiss particular population. And the same way for robotics, for a social assistant, when we use reinforcement learning, we can find the bias introduced by the problem of initial experience, environmental factors, or limitation when we don't take something into account. So finally, we should take into account different type of machine learning. We should understand all the stakeholders who are involved in this process. We should understand that risks can be both physical or non-physical, visible and invisible. And the same way how generative AI can fuel accessible solutions, turning speech into text, text into speech, supporting accommodation, the same technologies were used for deep fakes among patients during pandemic, which was also multiplied by isolation and what we called echo chamber effect. So thank you so much. I can talk about this all the day. It's a very complex field. It was just a piece of this huge iceberg. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'm looking forward for the next session from my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Yona. That was super interesting. And I think that already gives us quite a few pointers to where we want to go with AI research ethics, right? Because you pointed out a big amount of problems that I think can be addressed already from the design, but also that will impact the research aspect of everything. If you had, I just have one question before I let you go. If you had in your head like the three major things that we need to consider in AI research ethics, what would they be from your expertise, from your diversity expertise?
Yeah, so first of all, we should understand that it's a multi-stakeholder, so we should research different people who are involved in this, and we should understand all of their diversity. So it can be parent, the child. And for instance, when we build AI for autism, we literally have a separate team. One team working with the child and one team working with the parent. They have a different interfaces, different data input scenario, ethics. And by the way, the law is different because there is a child protection, children rights, and there are so many things. The second thing, I believe, it will be the general framework and legislation, specifically after our Artificial Intelligence Act is introduced, after emotion recognition was affected by the law, is it basically being aligned with the law and all of these emerging frameworks. And third, it's both in the intersection of a medicine of a bioethics. We should really do something. We should build the AI system which benefit the patients. Because now, specifically driven by Silicon Valley, we have so many like toys, something which collects something, but why? Does it really help me? Does it really make my life better? Do I really need all of these heartbeat measurements? Is it really useful? So really understand the problem, medical problem, bioethical problem of these people, and put it into the center of the design, ethics, and the curriculum, which we build based on it. And that's why, for instance, social robotics companies call themselves learning companies, not developers, because they spend a lot of time to create these guidelines in this human-centered design and the adoption strategy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I was not texting anyone. I was taking notes while you were talking because that's actually super interesting. So thank you so much. I see that in the chat we have a question from Pekade that is asking, role of data, quality data in AI is very important, yet there's problem is that in data balancing, which would cause bias. how do you think it should be handled? So the question of data balancing and the question of quality.
Yes, I'm actually the created the course answering this question. You also can find it on LinkedIn. And it's about basically the devising the AI models for disabilities and medical technologies, about data collection and labeling. And
Yeah.
I mentioned all of these techniques because it's quite technical things, but there's a quite complex. We are coming from all of this type of biases, which can come from the labeling, from historical exclusion, from different type of machine learning and so on, and just working with every part of these distortions.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Does anyone in the room have a question for Yona? Nope. All good? Okay. Then Yona, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time. And if you want to stick around for the rest of the event, and if you have questions later on for the panel, that would be fantastic. And now,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we will get to the following. And yeah, there we go. So now we will start with Ida. That will come. So Ida Skubis, that will come and talk to us about humanoid robots as CEOs, decision-making, autonomy, and ethics. Ida is a professor at the Silesian University of Technology. She has a PhD and a master's degree in 4 languages, which is extremely impressive. And she works on extremely interesting things, such as robotics, linguistics, and human-centric approach to technologies. Yeah, yes. Just test.
Thank you, Oksana. So not professor, but assistant professor.
Oh, sorry.
And thank you, Oksana. Many thanks to Professor Lütke for invitation. And by the way, happy Valentine's Day. So I think it's a good idea to organize this event on this day. So I think all of us love AI ethics. So I would like to present you a new phenomenon in corporate management. So humanoid robots as leaders. So the incorporation of humanoid robots in leadership roles changes the way we perceive, strategize, and execute business objectives. And first, we need to define what humanoid robot is. So it's a robot with body, head, and limbs, looking and moving like a human. The robots as supervisors evoke many emotions. On the one hand, they inspire admiration and hope. On the other, doubt and fear of potential consequences. So, for example, the loss of jobs. A robot supervisor offers numerous advantages, mostly due to its exceptional data processing capabilities, enabling it to efficiently incorporate extensive information into its decision-making processes. The research by Gombolay of integrating autonomous robots to human teams in manufacturing proved that they can outperform humans in task allocation and that people are willing to cede control to robots. Another research by Hasselbeck suggests that most managers are willing to accept cooperative partnership with robots, provided that humans retain a substantial role in decision-making. Machines have also some limitations in management tasks, including targets. So they lack a sense of self or purpose. So humans must define their objectives and take responsibility of their tasks and outcomes. Intuition and imagination. Humans rely heavily on intuition in activities that require quick decisions. Creativity and imagination are intuitive, posing a barrier for machines to achieve general intelligence. Experience. So humans, so people base their knowledge on their private and professional experiences, and machines don't have experience. So they are limited to the tasks they have been trained for and lack the general intelligence to transfer their knowledge to other domains. As a result, managers must ensure contextualization beyond automated tasks. Emotions, curiosity, humor. So machines lack human senses, perceptions, emotions, and social skills, and they cannot be curious, which is a fundamental element of general intelligence. And responsibility, so delegating decisions to AI instead of humans presents a challenge in terms of responsibility. Managers are held responsible for AI errors, raising significant governance concerns for the company, especially when these errors have profound and long-lasting impacts on legal, ethical, financial, and strategic aspects. And now I would like to introduce you Tang Yu. So in August 2022, the Chinese gaming company NetDragon Websoft appointed an AI-powered virtual humanoid robot as the chief executive of one of its subsidiaries. So Tang Yu is expected to streamline processes, enhance work quality, improve execution speed. She serves as a real-time data hub for analytical decision-making and risk management. And she focuses also on talent development and fostering a fair workplace. And the satisfying results appeared quite quickly after introducing Tang Yu. After 6 months of introducing Tang Yu, the company's value increased its stock market up to 10% on the Hong Kong stock market. The next one, Mika, CEO at Dictador. So in September 2023, so I don't know if you heard the news, but it was in the news everywhere. The news has made a groundbreaking announcement about a humanoid robot called Mika, who became a CEO of a company based in Poland, so 20 kilometers from the place where I work and live. Mika represents Dictador, leading luxury RAM producer company. As presented on Dictador's website, Mika, developed by Hanson Robotics, is a superior version of her sister prototype, Sophia, who was activated in 2015. And Mika's role involves serving as a board member, overseeing the art house projects, facilitating communication with employees. She operates 24 hours, 7 days a week, of course. She's meant to identify potential clients and choosing artists for bottle designs. And finally, we can move to the EU, to European Union regulations. As you all know, the European Commission published a communication with 7 key requirements on ethical AI usage, included in the white paper. And the accompanying report to the white paper from 2020 establishes that some AI systems can demonstrate autonomous behavior throughout their existence. And this may require a new risk assessment. To guarantee safety, human supervision may be essential from product design to the entire life cycle of AI products and systems. The document indicates 4 aspects of human oversight, including the first one, requiring human review and validation before the AI system's output becomes effective, such as in the rejection of social security benefit applications, allowing AI systems to make immediate decisions, but ensuring human intervention is possible afterwards, like in the case of processing credit card applications, real-time monitoring of AI systems with the ability for humans to intervene or deactivate, as seen is in driverless cars with a stop button controlled by a human. And the fourth one, introducing operational constraints on AI systems during the design phase, such as requiring driverless cars to stop under specific conditions, for example, of low visibility, or maintain a certain distance from the preceding vehicle under all circumstances. European civil law in robotics from 2016 discusses the notion of granting legal authority to autonomous robots. On the one hand, it questions the idea of assigning legal personality to machines lacking consciousness, feelings, thoughts, or their own will. On the other hand, the motion for a resolution seems to lean towards viewing robots as electronic persons when they make autonomous decisions or interact with third parties, implying that robots themselves would have legal liability. And as indicated in the document, the feasibility of such a concept within the next 10 to 15 years is questioned from scientific, legal, and ethical perspectives, as it seems impossible for robots to participate in legal matters without human control. The Comprehensive European Industrial Policy on Artificial Intelligence and Robotics. There are 6 main aspects. I'm not going to discuss all of them right now. I will concentrate only on those ones that concentrate on decision-making and autonomy. Yes, I finished. So the 4th chapter emphasizes the crucial role of humans in decision-making, particularly in professions like medicine, law, and accounting. And it is underlined that humans should always be considered responsible for decision-making process. And the last one, the 5th chapter refers to decision-making and limits to the autonomy of AI and robotics. Individuals should have the right to be informed, appeal decisions, and seek redress when AI makes significant decisions affecting the rights or well-being. AI systems must adhere to strong principles, including not storing or sharing personal information without explicit consent from the source. The decision-making process can be also problematic in terms of transparency and bias. AI offers significant advantages in automation and decision-making, but it poses risks when algorithms are rigid and non-transparent. And in this document, the policy urges the Commission, member states, and data protection authorities to work together to prevent and reduce algorithmic discrimination and bias. It also calls for the development of a robust ethical framework for transparent data processing and automated decision-making to guide data usage and uphold union law. So it was supposed to be read by my but it doesn't work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ida. That's super interesting. That gives us a very good background also on why you do it for the panel later. So if you have any questions for Ida, keep it for the panel. And we'll move on now to Tom. Tom, if you want to join us. So Tom is Secretary General of the Luxembourg Agency for Research Integrity. And basically, it's about supporting member organization when it comes to research integrity topics and fostering culture of research integrity and investigating cases of alleged research misconduct and unacceptable research practice at LARI member organizations. The floor is yours, and here it is.
Thank you very much. Also, make sure that it does not look too odd to the online participants in case they can see me. Yeah, so thank you very much to Oksana and the whole Institute for Ethics of Artificial Intelligence for this invitation. Let's move to, that is my presentation, which I've given the title Artificial Intelligence and Research Integrity, Challenges, Opportunities, and Uncertainties. I will spend considerable amount of the 10 minutes I have on elaborating a bit on what I mean when I talk about research integrity, because unlike the other speakers here, and I guess also unlike most people here in the room, my background is not in AI ethics, but in research integrity to some extent, also in research ethics. But I am not an AI ethicist as such. I rather need expertise from AI ethicists to fulfill my role or to make sure that the Luxembourg Agency for Research Integrity can fulfill its role in supporting the Luxembourgish research community in adhering to good research practices. So let me try to delineate a little what I mean with research integrity and what a research integrity office, LARI is a research integrity office, actually does. This is a figure that was developed by a EU-funded project, INERI, back in 2019 or 2018, something in that ballpark, delineating the responsibilities of ethics committees, of integrity offices, and several of the overlapping issues. I won't go into too many details here, but wanted to say that the perspective from which I am speaking is that of an integrity office, as well as a person dealing with overlapping issues. I am not in my daily work concerned with what research ethics committees do, but have been doing that previous jobs and do talk to members of ethics committees quite regularly because integrity and ethics are conceptually, of course, closely related. The difference mainly refers to the governance procedure in the sense that an ethics committee typically approves research protocol before research is implemented, whereas an integrity office would come into play in case good practices are violated. We also give trainings in general on good research practices, but we don't review protocols. So it's an ex ante versus an ex post governance approach by and large. Some key principles of research integrity that I might come back to, especially when answering questions during the panel discussions, are those enshrined in the European Code of Conduct for Research Integrity, which is, I would argue, the most focal, most crucial guidance document, at least in Europe, because all of those who have ever been involved in projects funded by the European Union probably know that you have to declare adherence to what is stated in this code of conduct. The 4 principles are: first, reliability in ensuring the quality of research reflected in the design, methodology, analysis, and use of resources. Honesty in developing, undertaking, reviewing, reporting, and communicating research in a transparent, fair, full, and unbiased way. Respect for colleagues, research participants, research subjects, society, ecosystems, cultural heritage, and the environment. And last but not least, I will come back to that, accountability for the research from idea to publication, for its management and organization, for training, supervision, and mentoring, and for its wider societal impacts. So some of the principles are buzzwords that already have been touched upon in the presentations by both Jona and Ida, and I guess we will focus on them time and again in all the ensuing discussions. So the question is, good research practice, that's what an integrity office does. So key question, at least for agencies like LARI, is basically at the current stage, how will artificial intelligence affect research? AI has been affecting research for quite a long time. There are established usages, especially in biomedical research, for diagnostics, partly for treatment. They work quite well, often better than human-led applications. However, new tools such as large language models, ChatGPT, etc., will affect research in all likelihood more broadly, more profoundly than tools with clearly delineated application areas, such as tools for diagnostics that are more specific methodologies in a way. In particular, it is quite likely that large language models, and ChatGPT already does that, I think, affect all phases of the typical research process from ideation to publication. I won't have the time to address AI implications for each phase of the research, but I would like to point to a couple of issues that I am sure the research integrity community and hopefully the whole research community will discuss in more depth during the next couple of years because they're of paramount importance. Let's start with ideation. If we use an AI, ask ChatGPT, give me an idea for a certain research project, well, that's probably rather unproblematic from a research integrity standpoint. We probably should not entirely rely on artificial intelligence tools to come up with ideas due to many of the issues that Jona mentioned in his talk, because some AI models are based on biased data. So they might, in the questions they would suggest, reflect this, but by and large, I don't think anyone would say, hey, I have a good idea. It has not come from an AI, so let's not pursue this. This seems unproblematic. Developing research ideas, all of those, all of us who are researchers typically spend quite a lot of time writing research proposals, knowing that the vast majority of them won't ever get funded. So there is why it's quite tempting to say, hey, let us use AI to write a lot of this, because it's not very effective use of my time to work on something where I know chance that this gets funded might be in the single digits percentage-wise. Still, here the crucial issue is coming back to especially the accountability principle. Can an AI be accountable in any meaningful sense of the term? Probably not. As a researcher, research manager, whatever I am, I can. So that's one of the reasons why both in applications as well when you use AI in publications, it is nowadays almost always mandated that you disclose that you have used them. Where there are more open questions is how actually to do that. How do I disclose that I have used an AI in writing an article or writing a funding application or whatever? And there we're not yet at a stage in the integrity community where we have reached a consensus. I think there is almost a consensus that an AI can't be an author of a paper. There were some papers published with ChatGPT mentioned as an author, but this goes back to the accountability problem. Being an author entails moral rights. These are the rights I keep, even if I waive my copyright, for example. We often give away copyrights when we publish to the publisher, but we retain moral rights. And AI probably can't. AI can't be responsible for misconduct in case data was fabricated, something was plagiarized. Yeah, it might be prone to do that. Can they be accountable for that in a meaningful sense of the term? Probably not. Can they be deserving praise? Also hard to say. So that's why here there is, I think, a nascent consensus that they can't be authors, but how to acknowledge them is more difficult. You can say, and some people do argue that, put them in the acknowledgement section. Others, such as Mohammed Hosseini and colleagues, would say, hey, this actually poses the same problems as making them an author. Being acknowledged also has this moral dimension to it. So yeah, you kind of scale it down, but the basic problem remains the same, and argue for describing how AI was used in methodology sections. Saying, where did you use them? What were the prompts given? On what date did you do it? Who used it? Because AI answers might evolve over time, which then poses challenges to reproducibility and replicability of research, which is quite crucial because we want our research to be reliable. If something is not reproducible, more or less by design, because we can't travel back in time, this is at least a challenge. That's probably not something we can always avoid, but it's a difficulty we're facing. So that refers to developing ideas, to publishing whenever we write something. That I think is currently the hottest topic because that's the genuine novelty ChatGPT immediately had. And you don't need particular skills to use it. So this creeps into many published work. In the interest of time, and we can address more issues in the discussion if this is interesting to people, I'll offer some concluding thoughts or food for further thought that, at least from a research integrity standpoint, matter significantly. I think transparency, there's, I think, agreement on that about usage of AI tools in the research process is of key importance. Journals typically demand this now, most funders do. We just have to find the way how to best do it. The nice thing is open science, the open science movement is quite prominent in research governance, has a similar agenda. We can hopefully create some synergies here. Accountability should always, and I would argue, can only remain with researchers. That's similar to one of the points Ida made with regard to, hey, what's the role of a robotic CEO or other decision maker? They can't be fully accountable in a major sense. One important point, I won't have time to address that in any depth, is research assessment schemes should incentivize responsible conduct of research, because publication pressure, I would argue, is one of the major reasons why using AI is tempting. If we could decrease them by changing assessment schemes, such as Quora is trying to do this, this would probably mitigate some of the problems. Operational guidance for researchers and innovators, as well as ethics reviewers and integrity bodies, is needed. Operational is the key word here. We do have significant amounts of high-level guidance, but the how-to guidance especially for non-AI ethics experts, is lacking. Last but not least, I think we urgently need education programs for researchers, for ethics reviewers, for integrity specialists, research managers of all career stages. That's important because quite often our efforts focus primarily on PhD students. But this is new. This is also new for more senior researchers. They are confronted with challenges they don't know how to navigate either. So if we develop these programs, we really need buy-in from them. And that's also where I would argue university leadership, company leadership are responsible for making sure that these educational efforts really permeate to all levels of an organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. And now we'll get to our last speaker before we get to the panel. Yitzran Wang, please join us. So Yitzran is an associate professor at the Institute of Advanced Study at Kyushu University and a visiting scientist at IEAI, if that's right. He has been appointed as an assistant professor at the Frontier Research Institute for Interdisciplinary Sciences and Graduate School of Engineering at Tohoku University from 2017 to 2023, Stanford Law School's TTLF Fellow from 2018 to 2021, visiting assistant professor at the University of Hong Kong in 2018, and Peking University's Yahoo Research Fellow from 2010 to 2014. And we can also add now to the list that you will be a visiting researcher here at the Technical University of Munich. So we're very happy to have you today. Please tell us all about it.
Okay, thank you also, and you Institute steps the kind support. Sorry that from yesterday I took an 18 hours flight and with the 5 hours train. So now I have some jet lag. So please forgive me if I made any mistake during the presentation. And today I would like to share some thoughts about the AI ethics standardization. For me, I think I am the social scientist and with the legal background. But I have been working at the Tohoku University's School of Engineering, Department of Robotics for 7 years. And during this kind of environment, it allowed me to can have a close collaboration with the robotic scientists and to study on a lot of issues based on the robot ethics and the law. So RoboRobot Asia is the name of my lab, and it is also the integration hub. Its role is to integrating AI, robotics, and LC from interdisciplinary perspective. However, RoboRobot Asia is not only exist in Kyushu University. So there's also a previous one in China, because at that time I was studying my PhD, and I also joined the EU RoboRobot project. And my role was the bridge and between the EU projects and Peking University. And also some law professors, they think this project is very important. So in order to strengthen the bilateral collaboration with the EU, therefore we established the RoboRobot Asia in China. And now with my new position at the Kyushu University and my institute's approval and support, now what we are trying to do is like we want to combine the three RoboRobot Asia hub into one research network. And what is the research network to our definition? Our definition to research network is a kind of innovative organization, and it is something between traditional research center and the research association. And it's a kind of a distributed network, and it can share the different resources from the partner institutions. For example, for Tohoku University, they have the world-class robotics faculty. So in this case, they can focus on the research resource in the fields of robotics and to work with us. And as for Kyushu University, our roles will be to do the integration to combine some LC research and HRI research and the robotics research together. And so for next month, we are going to open the new robotics hub at Tohoku University. And so this is the current progress. But to implement this kind of concept of a research network, it not only have the academic value, but it's also an important method to promote the interdisciplinary research. But I also realized that for me to implement this kind of research network, there's one critical challenge is from the cultural differences. I think to most of the people, when we mention about the cultural challenge or cultural gap, maybe this is what you think about, right? But what I refers to the cultural difference is another aspect. It's not about the regional cultural difference. It is kind of organizational cultural gap. Yeah, I think to establish a kind of research network, the most difficult is like for engineering people, they have their engineer culture, but to law people, we have a lawyer's culture. And how can we properly communicate to each other is very important. If we cannot realize it, it's difficult for us to create this kind of research network. And I also learned 2 lessons from the collaborating with the engineers during my 7 years of position at the Tohoku University Graduate School of Engineering. The first lesson is like to work with the robotics engineers, and it will be able to let us to use a new methodology and to investigate LC problems, such as the empirical studies. So this is the robot that we used for our study. And it's a kind of AI-triggered robot. And we use this to do the study for evaluating people's tolerance for privacy when they are using the social robots. And after we conduct this empirical study, participants told me that the feeling is totally different when they just fill out the questionnaire based on the traditional methodology. So we think this is something new and it should be found. And the other lesson is like, I think law may not always be ideal tool for regulating emerging technologies. So this is because the current legal regulations, sometimes it may have the gap to regulate the risk of the new technologies. And also based on my another projects, and I also use the HR experiments, and we to propose a kind of assessment method to validate the data protection law to test whether they can accept the risk based on the robotic embodiments or not. So I think these are the 2 lessons I learned from the working together with engineers. But based on the 2 lessons, it also made me transferred my interest from the law into ethics. And now it's more focused on the basic standardization, because I think law is very difficult to regulate AI. It's based on the pacing problem. The development speed of law is so slow. But every 3 months or every 6 months, and you can see the new version of AI systems updated. How can we properly use the law to regulate the fast AI? So recently, my interest has been changed into how can we use standards as the alternative way and to regulate the risk of AI. And but currently, there are already some different methods. Like type A is called harmonized standards, and type B is called soft laws. And now my focus is on type C. I am thinking about how can we use the IEEE's AI standards and to regulate the AI systems risk. And so currently, I'm also serving as the chair for IEEE P7017. And these are the members of our working group. But I think one key point for our P7017 is like we are going to use the Living Lab as the infrastructure for us to to develop the ethical design metrics. And also it can not only to test the usability of social robots, but it also can be the site and to developing the study method for empirical case study. And these are some previous examples of how we conduct the LC experiments inside the Living Lab at the Tohoku University. And we also propose a kind of ethical design database. And currently we finished 3 different use cases, including socially communication robots and assistive robots. And the final one is the religious use robots. Okay, now for last part, I would like to connect my research from the AI ethics standardization into today's theme, research ethics. I think there are some challenges that we should be aware of when we considering applied research ethics into standardization. I think the first point is like how we should identify our targeted group. I think it's something like the first speaker, he mentioned about the issues like define the stakeholder. Like for standardization, it's important to define who are the targeted group. Like should we focus on the designer, developer, or the seller, or the user? And for developer, maybe they have their own research ethics. But for users, maybe their ways for research ethics are different to developers, because for users, maybe the issues is like when they use the robots products for the academic research, how can we ensure the research ethics? So the sense are totally different, but it's important for us to properly identify the different targeted group. And also the other issue is like how can we properly respond to the demands and between the industry and academia? I think currently when we discuss about the research ethics, most people, they are discuss about the research ethics based on the demands from the academia perspective. Like we have a lot of ethical educational training, but it's mainly for the professors and the researchers, but rarely have the research ethics for engineers. I think this is also one point that we should think about. And due to the time limitation, I think the last 2 points is about how can we address the difficulty to standardize the ethical guidelines of emerging technologies and cultural diversity and its impact to AI ethics standardizations. And so I think I would like to stop here, but if you have further questions, and we can discuss later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please. So thanks to the three of you for presenting what you're working on and how it relates to research ethics, or to AI research ethics rather. So now please, all three of you come here. You can sit on those high chairs and we'll start the panel discussion. So that's also the moment where if you have any questions in the chat or in public, you're free to ask. Okay. Just gonna go back to the initial slide, so that might take just a second. Here we go. Perfect. All right. Question in the chat. Yes. Let's start with that. Can you elaborate on religious use of robots? So that's for Yisran. Religion, God, is not often brought into the picture of AI ethics, so the standardization of AI ethics will always be a problem. So maybe let's go back to the initial question of this, which is, can you elaborate on religious use of robots?
Currently, for our P7017 standards, we are focused on the 5 different types of intelligent robots. So they are the next generation healthcare robots, the current healthcare robots, and also socially communication robots, and the mobile robots. And the last one is the religious use robots. The reason for us to consider standardized for religious use robots is because we think this is a kind of a novel idea. Yeah, it's based on the Dr. Gabriele Tovato. He is the creator for this kind of religious use robots. And I think for last year, BBC have also reported his robot. And this robot has already been used in many churches I think in Germany and Poland. And
so interesting.
Yeah. But I think one ethical consideration is like sometimes its impact can be deceptive, because it's from its designer, Dr. Tovato. He said the purpose for he to create the religious robot is not to create the idol and for people to pray to, but it's a kind of a companion and can help some elderly people who may have a dementia and can pray to the God together. So I think this is the point. It's not to create an idol, but it is a companion. But actually, when these robots be used in the real situation, and he identifies that some people still have a misunderstanding, and as if they are prey to the God, to the robots, but actually the robot is just a companion. And this could be the ethical question. And currently, we are also do our effort to collect as more as the use cases as the basis for analysis and trying to figure out how can we based on these kind of cases and to draft some ethical guidelines and to reduce these kind of ethical hazards.
That is super interesting. And so I'm just going to go around with my computer so that I can actually look at you when I speak with you. Okay, so that's a super interesting point. Now, going back to the question of research ethics or AI research ethics, does anyone here have a question yet, or should I start with the ones I've prepped before? No? Okay, I'll start. So my first question is, you all three come from three different backgrounds. So you're more from a legal background, but working with engineers, you come from a research integrity background, and you come from an AI ethics and linguistics background. So experimental science, but also management. Exactly. And so I think all of us, though, still have to face and figure out solutions to similar issues. So what would be for you when we consider AI research and maybe the use of AI in research as well? What would be something, I know Tommy already mentioned some stuff, but that would come to mind as a paramount that we need to address regardless of the type of AI we're using, right? So just the fact that we're using AI brings those kind of considerations into our research and our research protocols, maybe, or research ethics. Whoever wants to start first can jump in.
So maybe I think it's the decision-making process, so how far the AI can make decisions, what decisions it can make. And of course, there's always this human oversight.
Yeah.
So we need to control what AI produces and how it works.
And what we mean by human oversight, so what type of oversight is necessary. I think there are different models, human on the loop, human in control, etc. And also which model to use where, so that we really operationalize the concept of responsibility, accountability in research processes in a concrete enough fashion that it can be applied and that it also can be evaluated whether something was applied or not.
Yeah.
What I would add more structurally, but I think which is very important, was already mentioned implicitly, at least by Jona, is that, and I think Jens, you also mentioned that artificial intelligence research, both on and with artificial intelligence, is done a lot in the private sector. Many of the progress, the innovations come from the private sector. That's different to many other technologies that were developed in the past. And the regulatory landscape, as well as the incentives faced by actors, are different here. As a result of that, we currently develop standards, guidelines, etc., while the problems are already occurring. We're building the ship at sea, so to speak. I think it would be important. That's also why it might be very useful to address an odd case like religious use of robots, to address things in a more forward-looking way, so that we do have guidance in some way, shape, or form in place before these most pressing and urgent questions occur, because then we inevitably end up in a certain period of time in which we really struggle. And here especially the kind of points of contact between private and public research, also private-public cooperations, is, I think, crucial. How do we ensure that researchers and innovators in these different sectors can collaborate meaningfully, are regulated in a similar way, so that we don't have so that there are no opportunities for forum shopping, that you can do something that is essentially unregulated in one realm where it is tightly regulated in the other. That would predictably lead to problems, and to constantly consider that. I think that's paramount really across sectors.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
I think for use AI, maybe one issue regarding the research ethics is like there will be more and more situation in our daily life that people will tend to use the AI to replace their daily work, right? But it's very important to identify that what is the boundary based on the specific applications. I think this could be important. One example is like for medicine or law. This kind of discipline is highly professional. So we should be use a more higher standard and to review what is what the kind of area you can use AI or which area you can't. But I think at this moment, this is just a start, and let's also need more people to pay attention on this issue.
Agreed. I see that we have a question in the chat, Kia ora from New Zealand, and thank you for the conversation. There is going to be a fine line between leveraging AI to enhance human capabilities and ensuring that such advancements do not lead to invasive surveillance or manipulation of human behavior. What safeguards are necessary to prevent the exploitation of vulnerable populations? What safeguards are necessary to prevent these AI, service robots, or any other technology from becoming a component of vulnerable populations? I'm going to just reframe this question in the context of AI research ethics. So what safeguards are necessary to prevent the exploitation of vulnerable population in AI research? And how do we make sure that the technology does not take or become a component of what makes populations vulnerable? Anyone with opinions?
Yeah. Can go first. I think there are many layers of regulation that you need. The probably, and I think that's in the making, is that some things or some absolute no-goes are enshrined in law. This is because that's where you need teeth, and these are teeth that even ethics with teeth probably never will have. But that's obviously not sufficient, and also you can't regulate everything by law, because law by itself has to be a bit static, not agile, for good reasons. But that limits some of its governance capacity in rapidly emerging fields. I would argue that otherwise you need a concerted effort. First, researchers, of course, should be educated about what they are expected to do. That's not sufficient either, but that's an important thing to instill moral reflection, because in medicine, everyone who becomes a medical doctor undergoes research ethics training. Yeah. Anthropologists do this by definition somehow. I think there it's not typically called research ethics, but this is pretty similar. Technology researchers don't always get this, and that would be important. As soon as they develop something that affects either individuals or society at large, that there is at least awareness for that. Mm-hmm. Research ethics committees, as they exist in more and more fields, important, but they need to have expert members also, because that's, I think, currently a problem. If you have AI ethics projects reviewed by people who have a background almost exclusively in medical ethics, they might not be able to spot the really pressing issues. They spot everything related to informed consent because that's a hallmark there, but not necessarily algorithmic bias.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree with Tom. So education, education, and education. And of course, I will repeat again, so human oversight at all the steps, and also limits to the autonomy.
Yeah, and maybe to build on that, also the question of transparency that you were mentioning, and you were mentioning as well, question of having transparency at each of the steps and accountability, therefore.
I have a little bit of special comments about education.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think currently in Japan, how we ask people to receive the education for research ethics is mainly to let you read some of the video about the instruction, and then later when you finish all the contents, it's about 30 minutes or 1 hour, and then there's a quiz, and then you should pass the quiz, and then you will get the certificate. That's all. I think this kind of mechanism is the current what we are doing in Japan. Or I don't know what you are doing in Europe, but it may be similar or not. But I'm wondering whether this kind of way can really prevent the risk of AI. Because what the difference is to the traditional research and AI is like, AI is the emerging new subjects. And this kind of subjects can, behind the AI development, it may hide a huge benefits. If I succeed, I will become a billionaire. So why should I care about the AI ethical education? So this could be one problem. And I think based on the current mechanism about how the government or the ministry, they ask the researchers that should follow the educational training. We should also, based on our research project, we should also consider an innovative approach to prevent this kind of risk. Because, you know, to the worst case, it can be the existential risk to destroy all the humanity. That's a crazy scientist that, you know, do something unethical.
The doomerism approach. Yeah. Yes, please. Do you want to come forth so that the mics can catch what you're saying? Thank you. You need to speak loud into the.
I have a simple question, but concerning robots appointed as CEOs in company. So why do they need the embodied component? I mean, it's not sufficient to have just a chatbot that can manage the same functions. And the question so is like, do they did it just for marketing, just because it's more shareable media to have a robot rather than just an AI, or are there like technical reasons why you need the embodied dimension gives something more? I don't know.
So as you can see, so they are not real. So they are called CEOs of the companies, right? But basically they are under humans' control all the time. So they are not proper CEOs as we define it usually. So they still need human control, so human oversight, guidance. So as you mentioned, it's rather right now at this stage is a sort of marketing campaign, I think, that they have a CEO as the leader of the company. And you asked also about this embodiment. So I think it's better for us if we work with a humanoid robot than with a chatbot, because we are really tired of all those virtual chatbots. So Tangyu is virtual, right? Virtual humanoid robot. But anyway, the employees are happy with her. But I think Tangyu, so if you have someone or something that is real, it's better to cooperate anyway, I think. Yeah. So we prefer to have contact in the real life.
There's actually research on collaboration with robots, and for this kind of all-around type of collaboration, it's better to have something embodied, even though it looks very weird. So maybe the uncanny value effect might counterbalance it. But there's a embodiment helps with the interaction. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yes.
Maybe just to jump into the same line, like.
Oh, please. The mic.
But also about, I have a couple of questions for you guys, but maybe to follow up that question, what about, because we often talk about data, like training for data sets or training for robots, but what about the other way around? When we have to train or educate humans to actually interact with machines, because I was reading yesterday this book about the alignment problem, and most of the times the real problem is like humans don't know yet. I mean, we need to ask questions and also make sure that the instructions that we give to those machines are accurate enough for the outcomes that we want. And if you cannot tailor that or nail that, then we might have consequences that maybe we won't desire. So I wonder if in your research you have any empirical data or experiences about this sort of human-AI collaboration, because that's the topic of today in a way, regarding not just like on the human side, like how we can also train humans to use machines.
So there's not a lot of research right now because they are new robots. So Tangyu was, so basically both of them were introduced a year ago. So in 2022, in August, September. So Tangyu and Mika. And till now, so what I know from the video, so yeah, so as they show it, so the people are happy to cooperate with those robots, but of course it's the initial stage, so we will see how this cooperation looks like. And I sent also the invitation to the owner of Mika, because as I mentioned, so he lives, so they are working 20 kilometers from the place where I work. So I hope he accepts, and I can tell you more maybe next time. And I talk to Mika and to the employees.
Great.
Yes, right. You also would like to jump on this question of collaboration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think control problem and value alignment, the two problems are the critical problem to AI safety. So I think you ask a very good question. But my answer is like, for this kind of human machine collaboration, we can see the whole process as the front end and the back end. Actually, for my lab, we have a living lab. I just mentioned in my presentation slides. But what our lab doing is to test the robots from the back end. In other words, we don't develop the robot by ourselves. We use the robots that the company they created and to do some tests and to design some HR experiments. And we collect some data from the human and how human and the machine behave. So this is the empirical data we have. But I think from your value alignment, I think it more have the connection with the front end.
Yeah.
We will need a kind of engineer and to tune and the robots and to ensure that the robots can really understand the human master's order, something like this, right? But for my lab, we have the AI robots, the green one, the cute one. But we cannot control it because its behavior and decision are totally decided by its program.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we can do is from the third party's view and to collect the data for the robots, how it interact with human during the experiments. So I think what we can provide you based on your question is very limited. But if you have the interest on the ethical design, maybe I can share more.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you. And maybe just like
Go for
last
it.
question for you two. You both talk about educating engineers about ethics and societal issues, right? You're talking about research integrity. And the other day I heard like someone that wrote an entire sort of grant application just based on what GPT suggests. And also you mentioned that for engineering. So I wonder, like engineers, most of the time and economists are trying to do things efficient. So how do you make sexy for them ethics? And that is something part also of the business models that will have, or, the thinking that they are trained as undergraduates, but all the way until, I don't know, higher grad school and so on.
How to make ethics and integrity courses appealing, at least on paper, I think it's a tremendous challenge. And I don't know if you have an answer to that, let me know. But what is of paramount importance on a more serious note is that if you offer these courses, that they are of good quality, so that you at least have mouth-to-mouth propaganda, that they are useful and empower researchers. I would assume that at least those working in academia are by and large concerned about conducting research in a responsible way. This might be a little different due to the incentive structure, not because there are bad characters in company settings. They respond to different incentives by design. Maybe it's not possible to make everything effective, but you can make things, and that's something that should be considered. I would argue mandatory. Funders, especially research funding organizations, do have the opportunity to really say that grantees have to fulfill certain requirements. This can include training, and people don't have that much of a choice. So would argue universities should make these courses mandatory. What then is important is that they are of high quality, so that people find them rewarding and useful, so that at least the educational step is taken, which is not sufficient, but important. One point, if I can add it, I think, which is a practical problem here. The more research is done with or on artificial intelligence, the more we're encountering novel problems, the more we would need teachers who are competent in that. There are not many of them. Usually we assume that senior researchers can teach junior researchers because they are knowledgeable about the problems they face, or at least the problems are similar enough that they can transmit the relevant knowledge. If many of the problems we're now facing are genuinely new, and if ever more people will use artificial intelligence, then we will have a shortage of competent teachers, both in universities and in companies. And that's something that I don't know. There is no easy answer to that, but this will require very big training efforts.
More work for us. Dave, you're the last question, because after that we have to wrap up.
Oh, well, goodness, that's some pressure. I want to pull on the string of responsibility a bit more. Because part of the focus has been on educating the engineering side, right? I mean, on the research side of R&D, responsible device, the responsible use piece. But is it really about the technology? Yes, it's neat to have an embodied robot, and it can really be a cool set of use cases to have a robot interacting on religious issues and thinking about those things. But in a way, where does that responsibility lie? On the engineers and data scientists that are building it, or on the other side in terms of use? For an example, if we're thinking about the CEO piece, in a sense, we could say, go back in technology and say, let's remember the 8-ball, right? They used to shake the 8-ball and ask it a question, it would give you an answer. Well, you could still have a human being responsible for that final decision with that limited technology. It is almost that it's the humans more so that may be the problem than the technology piece. Whether it's, coming from the research, right? Because people are going to cheat on papers. Now they have a technology to do it. Well, maybe the engineers shouldn't develop the technology, but, it's really because humans want to use it for sub-use cases, and those use cases are expanding. Right. I mean, it's a give or take, right? Because we only have so much resources to put in there. So I'm just kind of curious, where do you think that lies? Where is the bulk of that responsibility?
Yeah, I think it's a very important issue, but unfortunately, currently robots themselves cannot afford the responsibility. So it is the responsibility is still humans' responsibility, right? But now the key issue is like who should afford the responsibility? I think it's harder to say because the robots is a kind of emerging technologies, and it have different function and different use. So I think how we decide the responsibility, whether it falls on the designer side or the manufacturer side or the seller side, it should depends on the scenario, right? So this is also something we are trying to do because based on the slides I show you now, we are creating the ethical database, and one important function for the database is like it's a bottom-up approach for all. It's open to all the members. They can write something they think it may be important and to send to our platforms. And later we will collect it and to let our working group to do the analysis. And based on this kind of evidence, I think then we will be able to say who should be responsible. So this is currently our approach, what we are doing.
Should I go? I would say it's kind of related to dual use problems, right? So where we also would say we should not forbid everything. There should be maybe some firewalls where you say, hey, or red lines, don't cross them. But we should avoid, and I would argue we should not over-regulate research, because AI not only is a doomsday scenario, it also offers a lot of opportunities. In medicine, it already has enabled treatments, diagnostics, etc., that otherwise would not be possible. I assume there will be more progress made, which we should not try to stifle just in the name of avoiding the worst possible outcomes. So there is a fair bit of responsibility, in my view at least, that certainly rests with those using technologies, and where some irresponsible uses may be governable by law, etc. But I would certainly say don't stifle research processes, also value academic freedom, things like that, which are important.
Ida, do you have anything else you'd like to add about it?
I only think that it's a multi-dimensional question. So all AI specialists, ethics specialists, experts all the time working on responsibility of AI systems and products. So in what dimension AI systems can be responsible for the decisions? In what dimensions the person who produces or creates designs is responsible? So we are all working on it.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to answer.
All right. Did that answer your question?
I have tons of follow, but that was awesome. No, thanks.
So thank you very much for joining us. Before we go, I have some stuff to read to you again. Sorry. So first, thank you to all of the speakers for accepting our invitation, for being here today from far, very far, and still far. So thank you. And all of you for joining us, of course, and all of you online for joining us as well. and for your contribution to the discussion, for the questions, the comments, and the remarks. Also, thanks to the think tank for hosting us, because they always have fantastic setting for us. And stay tuned for an exciting talk and more exciting talks to come, where we will continue to welcome distinguished guest speakers. Our next speaker is on April 11th at 11 a.m. And the speaker series will be with Emma Roetkamp, PhD, who is the head of the Department of Philosophy at the University of Pretoria. And she, I believe, also has a few more things in her. It will be online, so easy to reach from everywhere. But she's an awesome, not just speaker, but she has also an awesome adventure of a career. So I think it's just very interesting. Thank you so much. And we will now close the online session. And then we'll just close the event. Thank you.